can get the thing you work so hard to reach and still feel empty when it arrives. And that emptiness doesn't mean you're broken. It may mean that something deeper within you is tired of being fed substitutes. There is a strange pain that comes when you finally get something you thought would change everything, and it still doesn't touch the place inside you that feels empty. You thought the relationship would do it. You thought the money would do it. You thought the achievement, the new beginning, or the spiritual breakthrough would finally make you feel complete. And for a moment, maybe it did. For a moment there was a rush. There was excitement. There was relief. There was the feeling that life was finally moving in the right direction. You could breathe for a second, because the thing you were reaching for was no longer out there in the distance. It was in your hands. But then the feeling faded. The excitement became normal. The new thing became familiar. And somewhere inside, the same quiet ache returned. That's when the mind starts searching again. It says, maybe this wasn't enough because I need something bigger. Maybe I need more money. Maybe I need a better relationship. Maybe I just haven't found the right thing yet. So the chase begins. You start believing that peace is just one more accomplishment away, that fulfillment is waiting behind the next door, and the reason you still feel empty is because you haven't achieved enough. But that couldn't be farther from the truth, because the mind is very good at moving the finish line. It tells you that once you get there, you can finally rest. But the moment you get there, it quietly just creates another there, another problem to solve, another image to maintain, another future version of you that seems more worthy of peace than the person you are right now. And before long, life becomes a constant negotiation with emptiness. You're not living. You're bargaining. You're saying, I will feel whole once this changes. I will feel safe once this happens. I will feel loved once they approve of me. But the more you chase completion through material things, the more exhausted your soul becomes. Because the soul knows when it is being offered substitutes. What's actually happening isn't that life has failed you. It's not that desire is wrong. It's not that wanting love, success, and stability is some kind of spiritual mistake. There's nothing wrong with wanting a better life. There's nothing wrong with that at all. The problem begins when temporary things are asked to give you permanent peace. You're trying to make something outside of you do the work of something deeper within. You're asking a relationship to give you an identity, success to give you worth, and attention to give you love. You're asking money to give you safety beyond fear, achievement to silence shame, and pleasure to cover pain. You are asking spiritual information to replace direct contact with God, presence, and truth. And for a while, these things can distract you. They can stimulate you. They can make you feel alive. But they cannot become the foundation of your being. That's why the emptiness keeps returning. Not because you're ungrateful, weak, or impossible to satisfy, but because something within you knows the difference between stimulation and fulfillment. Stimulation comes and goes. Fulfillment has roots. Stimulation gives you a momentary high. Fulfillment gives you a place to stand. Stimulation says, I want more. Fulfillment says, everything I need is right here. And most people are living in a world that constantly trains them to choose stimulation over fulfillment. Everything around you whispers that the next thing will fix the ache. But the ache is not always asking for an upgrade. Sometimes the ache is asking for honesty. Sometimes it's asking you to stop pretending that the thing you are chasing can bring you salvation. Because that's what happens. Without realizing it, the mind turns certain things into saviors. It says, if they love me, I will be whole. If I become successful, I will finally matter. If my life looks the way I imagined, then I will finally feel peace. But anything you turn into a savior also becomes your master. Because now your peace depends on it. Now your identity depends on it. Now your sense of worth rises and falls with something unstable. And when that thing cannot carry the weight of your soul, you're disappointed. But sometimes disappointment isn't failure. Sometimes it's revelation. It reveals where you handed your inner authority to something that was never meant to hold it. It reveals where you confused relief with peace. It reveals where you made the external world responsible for an inner hunger it could never satisfy. This is why nothing feels like enough. Because the hunger is deeper than the object. You don't just want more. You want meaning. You want rest. You want contact with something real enough that doesn't disappear the moment circumstances change. That's not a material hunger. That's a spiritual hunger. And spiritual hunger cannot be fed by endless material consumption. So what should you do about it? You don't begin by hating desire. You don't begin by pretending you no longer want anything. That just becomes another mask. You begin by telling the truth about what you've been asking those things to do for you. You look at the thing you keep chasing and ask, what am I hoping this will give me? Not on the surface, but deeper. If you're chasing approval, maybe you're really seeking permission to exist without shame. If you're chasing success, maybe you're really seeking proof that your life has value. If you're chasing control, maybe you're really seeking safety. If you're chasing constant spiritual answers, maybe you're really trying to avoid the silence where surrender begins. Once you see the deeper hunger, you can stop worshiping the substitute and stop asking these things to complete you. It's that simple. You stop saying, this must save me, and you start saying, this can be a part of my life, but it cannot be the source of my being. That's where true freedom begins. Because the moment something no longer is your savior, you can finally have a healthy relationship with it. You can enjoy success without needing it to prove you are worthy. You can receive love without demanding that the other person heal all of your wounds. You can grow spiritually without turning every insight into another identity to defend. This doesn't make your life smaller. It makes it more honest. Because everything becomes what it actually is. A relationship becomes a relationship, not a rescue mission. Money becomes a tool, not a god. Success becomes an expression, not an identity. And life becomes something you are present for, not something you are constantly trying to use as proof that you're enough. The emptiness begins to change when you stop running from it, because emptiness is often painful when it is filled with noise instead of understanding. Sometimes the hollow place within you isn't a hole to be stuffed. Sometimes it's a doorway. It's the place where the false promises of the world stop working. It's the place where the mind finally admits, I cannot keep feeding myself with things that cannot nourish me. It's the place where God is no longer treated as an emergency button, but as the living essence of your being. And when that happens, You may still have human needs, human dreams, and human desires, but desperation fades away because you are no longer trying to force the world to give you what only truth can give you. You are no longer trying to make temporary things provide eternal peace. You are no longer confusing movement with meaning. Nothing feels like enough when the soul is starving for what is real. And this is why more does not always heal the emptiness. Because the emptiness was never about what you lacked. It was about what you were disconnected from. You were disconnected from presence. Disconnected from truth. Disconnected from the quiet place within you that doesn't need to become more before it can be whole. And the mind hates this, because the mind survives through the next chase. But the soul does not awaken through endless chasing. The soul awakens when it finally sees what the chase was trying to cover. The ache is not your enemy. The ache is the part of you that refuses to be satisfied by illusion. The emptiness is not proof that your life is meaningless. It's proof that you are made of something deeper than constant stimulation. Nothing feels like enough because you were never meant to be completed by material things. You are meant to remember what can never be taken from you. If this journey spoke to you, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone ready to experience life beyond thought. Comment below. What is one thing you thought would finally make you feel complete, only to realize the emptiness was still there? I read every comment. If you would like to support my work directly, you can do so at buymeacoffee.com/magnumopus333. Or you can explore some original merchandise at my Teespring store online. The link is in the description below. Or perhaps consider becoming a channel member or sending a super thanks. Any support is greatly appreciated. Remember, your consciousness is the key that unlocks reality. Let's keep unlocking it together. Thank you for watching. Until next time.